class! Today's lesson is on critical reading. We'll explain the meaning of critical reading, the steps to take when reading critically, and finally, we'll read a passage critically and identify facts and opinions. So kids, are you ready? Great! Now let's get started. What is critical reading? Can you give it a try? Well, reading a text critically means that you want to think more about the text. You not only want to know what the text says, but how and why. Critical reading helps when you're seeking understanding, not just information. But why exactly do we need to read critically? 1. To understand what the author is writing about. 2. To identify the author's techniques. And 3. To evaluate the author's point of view. Now, let's go through critical reading process. The critical reading process starts with surveying. To survey a text means to take a broad look at a text to decide whether it is worth reading more closely or not. Then we have skimming. Skimming is a reading technique meant to look for main or general ideas in a text without going into detailed and exhaustive reading. This is followed by line-by-line reading. Line-by-line reading involves going through each word in a passage. This reading technique enables the reader to follow the thought process of the writer in order to fully understand the content and context of the passage. Afterwards, we have recalling. This step engages the reader working memory. The aim of recalling is to ensure that the reader remembers what he or she just read. And finally, rereading. The reader takes up the passage to go through the content again. This is to fill in any knowledge gaps that the reader may have. Some tips to consider when reading a passage critically are: 1. Consider the title. 2. Read slowly. 3. Use the dictionary and other appropriate reference work. And finally, make notes. Breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is one of the most effective ways to ensure a child's health and survival. However, nearly 2 out of 3 infants are not exclusively breastfed for the recommended 6 months, a rate that has not improved in 2 decades. Breast milk is the ideal food for infants. It recommends that colostrum, that is, the yellowish sticky breast milk that is produced at the end of pregnancy, is the ideal food for newborns to be given within the first hour of birth, a process referred to as early initiation. It is safe, clean, and contains antibodies which help fight against many common childhood illnesses. Breastfed children perform better on intelligence tests and are less likely to be overweight or obese, and less prone to diabetes later in life. Women who breastfeed also have a reduced risk of breast and ovarian cancer. Inappropriate marketing of breast milk substitutes continue to undermine efforts to improve breastfeeding rates and duration worldwide. Good job everyone for reading along! Now, to answer some questions, let's find out if you really read critically. What is the recommended duration for breastfeeding? What do you think the author of the passage was trying to achieve? What are diabetes and ovarian cancer? What do you think exclusive breastfeeding means? Think about the answers for a bit. Okay, the answer to the first question is 6 months. The statement, however, nearly 2 out of 3 infants are not exclusively breastfed for the recommended 6 months, a rate that has not improved in 2 decades, proves it. For question 2, the author was trying to educate readers about the benefits of breastfeeding. The answer to question 3 is diseases. Ovarian cancer, diabetes are diseases. And finally, exclusive breastfeeding means giving a newborn baby only breast milk for the first 1 or 2 years. Good job, everyone! Now we've come to the end of today's lesson. Today, we learned about critical reading. We learned that critical reading helps when you're seeking understanding, not just information. We looked at steps involved in reading critically. And finally, we read a passage on breastfeeding. See you in the next lesson!